right, we're live. This is Paul Spooner, and I'm joined by... Oh, I'll go first. Corbett.
By Norbert.
Norbert. And...
Arvind. That's me.
And Arvind. Norbert and Arvind. So we all three of us were, and to some extent are, still regulars at Shamus Young's site. And it's been over 7 months now, or 6 months, since he passed away, and been kind of meeting to try to get some people together and do like some retrospective, kind of talk about what he meant to us and the different things that he was involved in, what we liked about it. Just kind of talk about his stuff, kind of maybe keep the community together a little bit. Of course, his family is still running the blog, so there's still that. But I figured I'd do something a little in parallel to that so that we could have some other discussions. So why don't we get started? I'll just give a quick overview. I was introduced to Shamus's blog by a friend back in, I think, 2008, and started commenting, became a regular commenter over there maybe 2010 or so, and then started doing the podcast with him 3 years ago, I think, and was kind of involved. I did a few articles, but nothing really beside the podcast was the main thing. And I was mostly drawn by his interest in procedural generation. I love programming 3D graphics and procedural generation and stuff. And so that was the main thing that drew me to it, but also some of the authoring. I recorded some audio versions of his books. And it was drawn to my attention by my wife that he was my best friend when he passed away, and so I became very close to him over the years. So that's me. How about you, Arvind? I know you worked with him, I think.
Yeah. I mean, like, to start with, when I was still a student in my computer science course in college, I used to read a lot of game reviews, etc. And I mean, back in the day, The Escapist was a very popular site, mainly because of zero punctuation. But I would regularly read their articles because they used to be of very high quality, in my opinion. And Shamus was one of the writers there. And I basically found his site by clicking on the link in his author bio. And yeah, I mean, it's that was probably more than 10 years ago, maybe 15. And yeah, I mean, I just kept coming back to his site because of the excellent, his insights were really good for me. I'm a programmer who's also dabbled in game design, writing, etc. So for me, Shamus was basically a very good role model, because he was a programmer too by profession, but he had great insights about game design, game plots. He broke down some of the plots of popular games, often in a very hilarious / nitpicky manner. So yeah, I mean, the Shamus's entire content was right up my alley. So yeah, that's kept.
And then how did you
kept me coming back.
Yeah. We can go. I guess we can go into how you became connected with him and Good Robot a little bit later. How about you, Norbert?
Yeah.
Coincidentally, I also stumbled upon Shamus' work about 15 years ago. Might be 14. Might even be 13. I'm not sure exactly, but for me it was quite similar to Arvind. I stumbled on him on The Escapist, and excuse me, my 4-year-old.
Kiddos cannot be quelled.
It's well past bedtime, and they have a sixth sense of when I'm doing something else. Come here, sit on my lap. Come here, let's see my chores. What? Ja, bitte geht's ins Zimmer. Hört's noch einen Toni an. I'm terribly sorry, guys.
No problem.
That was perfect timing.
Good.
Ja, der kleine Vogel schaut lustig aus. She's my 4-year-old is just admiring the Discord sticker of the waving bird, which just call her 6-year-old sister on plan. But bitte ins Bett, meine Süßen, okay? Ich komme gleich zu euch wieder. Well, ich habe jetzt was zu tun. Ich habe jetzt was zu tun, Süße. Ich habe was zu tun, Süße. So I'd say, Arvin, I'd mute myself. You could talk about how you got to work with Shamus, and I'll continue my story once I calmed my offspring.
Very good.
Sure. So, all right. So, I mean, working with Shamus on Good Robot happened like over the course of I think it was roughly 7 to 8 months, like the actual time period. But before that, I had been following Shamus's blog about Good Robot. Like he would have periodic updates about the game. And in the meantime, back in for quite a long period, I think, like Shamus used to be a guest on Spoiler Warning.
Yes.
The show.
Yes.
And Ratskarn was a writer on 2 of my games. So I mean, the story behind it is very funny because I remember I had released a couple of games at that point, and I was more or less just like a student coming out of college. Like I didn't have a lot of or any money, in fact. And I wanted to make this game, like this RPG set in ancient India, like about subjects close to my heart, etc. And I was like, where do I find a writer? And I was looking at I would browse Shamus's website, and I back in that time I was like I would watch all the episodes of Spoiler Warning, especially their New Vegas playthrough was like one of my favorites.
Right.
So I just emailed Ratskarn out of the blue. I'm like, hey, I am X and Y, and look at my website. I have made a few games, and would you like to be a writer on one of my games? That was the idea. And nice. I was like, if you have a few minutes, I can pitch the idea to you, and we'll see if something works out. So it was literally basically like a fan kind of just writing an email out of the blue. I basically tried to be that's why I included the links to my work, etc., because I wanted to show that I was serious. I wasn't just like, oh, hey, Ratskarn, let's make a game,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, but then as it turns out, Ratskarn and I talked a bit, and then he did writing work on Unrest, and then after that, Will Fight for Food, SAS, Game of the Hour. So yeah, we basically had Ratskarn and I had a good rapport, and then Shamus basically was talking about on his blog, Good Robot and the sort of challenges it takes to actually make a game that's worth releasing, because working on the tech is cool in of itself, but this is something which I discovered when making my games. So as just a small background, I too, like Shamus, worked on my own engine in C++.
Wow.
So there was quite a lot of overlap there. And I just right around after releasing Will Fight for Food, I was like, we could do something like this, because there was a bit of uncertainty around what my next project would be, because we had tried a Kickstarter which wasn't successful. So, and right at that time, Shamus was talking about Good Robot, and the difficulty of polishing a game, the final stuff. So I basically emailed Shamus, and I was like, hey, what about, let's give it a go.
Sure.
Because, yeah. And as it turns out, we worked on Good Robot for quite a while. And essentially what I did was I was like, because Good Robot had a tech at its core, but the extraneous stuff was kind of missing, not for example the UI and the usability stuff and a progression. So
right.
Me, Ross, and Ratskarn and Mick, and we all basically worked on that. Mick worked on the art and all that. I basically gave it a roguelike framework, and Ross did a lot of the enemy design and balancing, because Shamus had a framework for designing enemies, etc. and Ross was like, okay, let's try to play with this, see what kind of enemies can be created. He made some requests to Shamus of like, okay, can you add this one feature? Because if you add this, I can have like multiple types of enemies and so on.
Right.
So,
So Ross was
yeah.
kind of the game designer and Shamus was the engine programmer, more or less.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. Yeah. And meanwhile, in this time, I basically kind of merged the Unrest engine and the Good Robot engine in like an unholy abomination.
Oh, really? Interesting. So you were
Yeah.
doing integration also with the engine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I mean, yeah, because what I did was I added all the UI framework and all the boring stuff that needs to be in the game. But
Okay.
like, yeah, like an options menu. Nobody's like,
Oh,
like
interesting. Yeah, I was wondering
Yeah.
where that came from because in Shamus's demos, everything was just like the game display and nothing else, right? And so you added
Yeah.
all that overlay. So did you add that as like a second render layer, or how did you do that?
No, I mean it was basically like the actual game was like it's basically like a state machine, So you start
Sure.
at the main menu state, and then you kind of go in there. I mean the actual structure of the code is like identical to Unrest. And by the way, I did talk to Shamus a few years ago, and I was like, hey, at this time I had stopped making independent games, so I wanted to make all my games open source. So I asked Shamus and I emailed him, and he was like, yeah, that sounds like a cool idea. So the source code for Good Robot is publicly available on GitHub under
cool.
an MIT, under an MIT license. So if anyone is curious on how it works, they can look at it and even reuse it if they so want. So, I mean, that there is a lot of I mean, I don't know how much time we have to talk about the various things we discussed in development, etc. But I mean, yeah, I can try to recall them.
All right, I think I found it. Arvind Dav /Good Robot.
Yeah, that's the one on GitHub.
On GitHub.
Yeah.
There, I got to put it in the chat. I'll put it in the video description as well. Or no, I'll just put it in the
Nice.
YouTube chat. There we go.
Nice. So, I mean, the source code is available, but the art assets, you kind of need the game on Steam, and then you can just copy the asset folder. And when you're when you're running the game, you have the
Right.
so,
You got everything. Cool.
yeah, and then you can just run and debug and I mean, this is something which I did too, and Shamus and I shared our views on this, in that all our data is basically text files or INI or XML files.
Yeah,
So it's basically open. So anyone who is interested can basically tweak they can mod the game, they can make a different version of it, or they can if they don't like something and the balance, they can change it.
Right.
So because I got my start in games working on Half-Life 2 mods. So I was
Okay.
always
yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, I'd love to come back and talk about getting started in gaming and programming and stuff. But let's go back to Norbert for a bit, and he can finish his intro.
Oh yeah. I'm back for now.
He's back.
You know how it is. You know how it is with
I
children.
know how it is. I don't know if you
as
have
an
any, Arvind, if you have any kids, but I've got plenty. So I'm actually in an external office divided from the house with the door closed. So they won't be able to get in easily, but they'll try, I'm sure, at some point.
Yeah, I'm imagining your kids like zombies on the outside, they're just like, oh, let us in.
Banging on the glass.
Oh, and I thought I'm in over my head with two. Also, as I'm Austrian, I should have said I'm back. Where was I? Oh yeah. So interestingly, I started to follow Shamus around the same time as you guys. But and this is something that I very much appreciate about Shamus' work. I come from a completely different avenue than you two. I have nothing to do with software development, with game development. I'm my profession is social worker, so I'm pretty far removed from working with machines.
Sure.
And
Shamus also
yeah,
was involved with social workers when he was younger, I think.
I think so too, judging from what I read about him or what he published about himself.
Yeah.
And my approach to him wasn't his work on his programming work, but it was actually the Stolen Pixels comics he did on
Oh,
Skate.
yeah.
Those were really up my alley, and they were just so witty and snappy, and but still they weren't mean spirited. All his humor, I felt like, came from a place that was of a place of admiration for the things he parodied or he joked about. Like,
playful.
Mean spirited.
It wasn't like he was bullying the devs or anything. He was being playful with what they created.
Exactly. And this was my approach to him. And then with Stolen Pixels, I discovered his Lord of the Rings comic, which for some very odd reason, the name eludes me, despite just having read the second remaster.
DM of the Rings?
DM of the Rings. Exactly. I was just had a blackout there. And that's also something I shared with Shamus was the love of Lord of the Rings from a time back before the movies even were a thing.
Right.
And I stuck around. Like, this is how I discovered him, and I stuck around. And I also read all his work on coding, and some of it went quite well over my head, but he was still writing about it in a way that was that I could get some sort of entertainment and education out of. And he was a true role model. Also like the way he kind of carved out his niche in the world, which I do find helped me also quite a lot, because like 10 years ago, I kind of had to reorganize my life a little bit, and
we also do that from time to time.
Yeah, we do that from time to time, and just reading about him basically doing his thing kind of reassured me that you don't have to adhere of those pre-planned or those concepts of a successful life that are very, very cliche. Like you can kind of, if you're passionate enough and if you're brave enough, you can go your own way. You don't have to tread a path well trodden.
Yeah, and Shamus was a very unconventional individual in many ways.
Yeah, he was unconventional, and like, I didn't know him personally. I had very sporadic email contact, especially through diecast questions. But to me, he always felt like a very, very humble and very content person. Like, he had quite a lot of adversity in life, both from the inside and outside, and he still held up his head high. And I felt like he was content with his lot in life, and that's very inspiring, I feel.
Yeah, he was certainly an exceptional man.
Yeah.
So
I agree. And I mean, in addition to, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, I was saying, in addition to that, I mean, in my time spent with him, what I admired was his patience and like level-headedness. Like, he was always able to, like, just like look at something and just, like, kind of take time to think about it, and then come up with a plan and tackle this. I mean, this is obviously related to the Good Robot stuff, because that was the time when I was, like, daily in contact with him. So, yeah, I mean, I really admire that about him. Like, his basically the ability to just like analyze something, and like his perspective was especially like unique because he had like almost like a combined like artist and slash programmer perspective, which is quite rare. Like usually people are very good programmers and people are very good artists. But I feel that he was like one of the few who could kind of look at things from multiple perspectives, which was really special.
Yeah, that's
Right.
that. I feel like that's true. Like we have there's this idea that there's the right hemisphere for the logic stuff, the programmer stuff, and the left hemisphere that's for the arts and the stories. And Shamus kind of had pretty good access to both hemispheres.
Yeah. Yeah, he had a way of connecting the technical with the relatable. It's not often seen.
Exactly.
Cool. Okay. Well, Arvind, did you want to go back to talking about getting into game development and like engine programming, or do we want to talk about some of our favorite stuff that Shamus made? Where do we want to go here?
I have something that's kind of both, so I can start with that and we can go from there.
Yeah, go for it.
So this is actually when I was in my final year of college. Like we had to kind of make a sort of mini project along with our semester, and I chose something based off his procedural terrain generation. Like he made a series of blog posts about like this way he could generate like a kind of, I think, a hex grid of terrain, or maybe it was a square grid. I'm not sure.
But I think he did both.
Yeah. This is so long ago that I don't remember which, but I do remember that I basically kind of used his blog post as a basis for my like a college project to have like a terrain generator. So yeah, that's basically like I mean, that's some of like very early, but it's still like, I have fond memories of that because I would read on his blog and like he would explain things so well that I was able to like, okay, like, even without looking at the code, because I know he eventually kind of released the code for it, but I was just like able to understand and kind of follow through the steps that he was describing to make. And what I made wasn't exactly what he made, but he helped me understand like basically a good teacher. So that's like really like, yeah,
it's just a small series of
it's just a small series of articles. I doubt it's even like the 30th most popular articles he's done. But yeah, that's my favorite memory. Like,
I'm looking for it now on his site. Let's see if I can find it. I'll post a link in the chat.
You would have to go really way back, because this was, I'm guessing, like 2008 maybe or 9. Yeah, this was like very old.
Yeah, it's in there somewhere. I'll keep looking for it. So you were using his work as kind of as a guidepost, as like a roadmap, kind of how to go about structuring the program.
Yeah, because I mean, this was the time when I was a student in college and I was still learning how to program. So, and I wanted to kind of learn about games programming and do something cool for my project. So, and Shamus's stuff was good because like it was not just like a super dry tutorial of like, okay, first you make this class and then you make that function and so on. But it was actually a way to like explain you what the thought process is, because when you look at procedural generation, often the end result isn't entirely clear. It's a mixture of basically mathematical output and art, right? Because what kind of procedural generation is good procedural generation? So you kind of have to have that like I don't know what to say, like an artistic eye to things. So, and like, like we were saying that he was really good at kind of combining the fields. So
right. Yeah, do you remember if it was Project Frontier?
I think it might have been Project Frontier.
I've got.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't the Minecraft-ish one.
Right. Okay.
This was just generating terrain. It wasn't anything anything else if I remember.
I'm just
It was like grid
pasting
cells with
all
numbers
these links
on
in
it.
here. Yeah. I'm just pasting all the links in. There's Project Frontier. Find the first one of that. Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that kind of frustrated me about Shamus was that he was open to releasing stuff to open source, but he would rarely do it for his own projects. Like, he was very reticent because he was like, oh, it's not finished, it's not done, it's not polished. Like, it's not in a good enough state to release, right? And I always felt like, oh, but just let it go. Like, we don't think that you're some sort of hero, godlike programmer anyway. Like, we know you're human. Like, just let us see the code so we can play with it. But he did release a lot of stuff eventually.
Yeah. I mean, he did have a sort of perfectionist streak to him. I think more for code than for writing. But yeah, unfortunately, this is something which I learned, when making all my games, is that when we, especially us as programmers, it's very hard to kind of be satisfied with any piece of code you wrote, because there's always some compromise, something that you didn't think of, or so. I mean, no piece of code is perfect.
Right.
So yeah, it's an unfortunate reality.
Yeah, and it's hard to kind of let that stuff go as someone who makes things. You feel a certain amount of responsibility to make it foolproof, right? And make it the best it can be. And it's like, well, can't always be the best it can be.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, that's something that's true for art as well. Like, I'm not a great artist, mind you, but having had my experiences with creating art, that's basically the same. You sometimes have to force yourself to stop and say, okay, this is done, despite seeing what you could improve or could do differently.
Right. Yeah. I run into that all the time. There's so many projects that I work on, and Terrain Part 1, the very last one there, ID 141, that's the first article in his that's titled Programming. This is the very first programming post that he did. I mean, not the first one that he wrote about programming, but in that series of articles. Yeah, it's always hard to let a project go. There's a song that I keep remastering, right? I've recorded it, I think, 4 times. And I finally was like, this is it. This is the final version. I'm not going to work on this anymore. I've got to just let this go and be what it is. And but it's hard to do. It's hard to do.
Yep.
So what kind of art do you do, Norbert? Are you
in my youth, I was an avid drawer.
Okay.
Kind of fell off with that, and I did improv comedy for quite a while.
Oh yeah.
Which is the most unfinished form of performative art you can imagine.
Right.
But it helps if you struggle with perfectionism.
Right, because you do it and it's done, and it's like, well, I can try again tomorrow, but I can't do it again today.
Exactly. Yeah, but right now it's mostly job and family and the occasional video game stream.
Sure.
Which I wouldn't call art.
Yeah, we all have those. We all have those ideas, like, oh, one day I'm gonna make this perfect, amazing thing. It's like, well, you'll never get there, but maybe we can get close.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring up, if you guys don't mind, since Shamus was such a fan of nitpicking, what are some things that really bugged you about Shamus? If we don't mind nitpicking the dead for a little bit.
I mean, he could be a little stubborn for something. So yeah, that's, I think, the number one thing. But I mean, yeah, not to a fault, I think, but still, kind of stubborn, kind of set in his ways, essentially. But I mean, yeah.
Yeah. He had an idea about how he was going to do something. He wrote about this in his autobiography or his autobiography about how when he wrote the Secret of Atlantis or whatever, that the thing he wrote in grade school, where he wrote this big long thing, and he was like, well, my teachers were always telling me to do my homework, and I couldn't do my homework, but I could do this, and then I had to do it, right? And it's like I didn't get a choice whether or not to do it, and I didn't get a choice for how I was going to do it. It was just like I either have to do it or I can't do it at all. And it's like he had this compulsion, some sort of compulsion thing. He had a number of mental disorders. I wouldn't be surprised to find out, but he had like this idea of like, here's the way that I can do this thing, and no amount of convincing on anyone else's part is gonna change that, right? And maybe it wasn't stubbornness, but it was at least came off as stubbornness a lot. I know when I was working on finishing Fall from the Sky, that I sent him a few drafts occasionally, and the only feedback I got back was, oh, this wasn't what I had in mind at all, so I can't really give you any feedback because like this isn't what I had planned. And it was just like, what? Like, can't you say if you even like it or not? And it's just like, nope, I can't. Like, this wasn't my idea of the story, and so it's your idea of the story, and so you're gonna have to figure it out yourself. I was like, okay, thanks a lot, I guess. Yeah. Certainly, he certainly appeared stubborn from time to time.
Yeah, but this also bridges the gap to something that I sometimes found a bit lacking. Well, it's not that strong of an emotion in me, but
sure.
He always came across as a bit, let's say, non-confrontational. I mean, it wasn't like he didn't have he wasn't not opinionated, but I oftentimes felt he kind of
too accommodating.
He didn't want to offend. Yeah, exactly. He was too accommodating. Sometimes I felt like he could be a bit more interested in confrontation, because sometimes good things can come out of confrontation. But I always felt like he was in any situation that would involve a quarrel, he was a fish out of water.
Right. I know personality-wise, he was extremely introverted and also extremely high in agreeableness. And so anytime he's with other people, it's like, oh, well, I'm already uncomfortable. And then it's like, if there's going to be confrontation, I was like, I want to make everyone happy. And so he was constitutionally unable to do that. But it was a difficulty from time to time.
Yeah, and that's really nitpick. It's not criticism.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a minor thing, and everyone's different. Like, I mean, at this observation, like I felt when working with him in Good Robot, because I mean, as in if you are a team of multiple people making a game, everyone has ideas on what the game should be, what the game should have, shouldn't have, and like there were definitely points where I felt Shamus had ideas. But because he was kind of afraid that, not everyone would be on board with them, or, people would try to find holes in the ideas, that he would decide to not share them and kind of withdraw from the conversation.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. He wasn't... He wasn't
Which is a shame,
player.
Honestly, because he usually...
he couldn't work with the team.
Yeah, which is a shame actually, because like his ideas were usually quite good, so people were interested in hearing them.
Right. Yeah, he didn't know what to do with. Well, no, that's not true. He didn't know what to do with feedback. Like he took feedback from the comments of his blog all the time and stuff he was writing. Yeah. He would read the comments and then change what he was writing or what was planned to be writing, and so like he could take feedback, but it was like he had to have this very narrow channel of feedback or something, and I don't know.
Yeah, I think that there had to be a layer of abstraction, like it both him voicing his opinions, which were done mostly in written form, and sometimes in video essay form, where he wasn't in dialogue, or in podcast form, which never were really that confrontational. There wasn't really much discussions going on in podcasts, and I think even less so when you joined him, Paul.
Yeah,
very, very hard. It was lots of harmony, which I appreciated.
Right. Yeah, that could have been a shortcoming of the podcast, was that we were both so in agreement on things. There's just I was rewatching a lot of them, and we're just saying, yeah, right, back and forth to each other. It's like,
Yeah, exactly.
it's not a good podcast.
And sometimes, no. Oh, it was still a very good podcast. Don't say it wasn't a good podcast. But sometimes I felt like I could hear that both of you sometimes said, yeah, right, but you were thinking, no, actually.
Yeah. Because I mean,
and I was so like that was those were this is my pet peeve with the podcast, but it has been even before you joined up, and even if you did it 3 years, I'm still kind of feel like you're the new guy. Damn, it's been a long time.
I am the new guy. Yeah, I was.
Yep.
But yeah, this because for me that would have been the most interesting part of those kind of questions and discussions.
Yeah.
I would
Especially
have loved to hear but actually.
Yeah, especially since both you and him, in my opinion, are good at articulating your opinions. So normally normally when someone disagrees, the best kind of disagreement is where they give you an explanation. So and yeah, a lot of Shamus's strengths are how he could, for example, explain video game programming, or could nitpick plots okay, this is why Mass Effect doesn't make sense, for example.
Right.
So yeah, actually having a disagreeing point of view and then the reasoning behind it is how most constructive sort of improvements are made. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a shame, but
yeah,
but it's hard to do on the fly. It's hard.
Yeah,
to do on the fly.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, it's a personality thing too. Like I'm pretty disagreeable, and so I don't have a problem doing it. When I was the co-host on the show, I tried to be more accommodating because it was his show, and I don't know, when he was doing spoiler warning with the previous hosts, I always felt like they kind of pushed him around, made him pushed him into a corner or whatever, and didn't really let him have his own ideas. So I tried to be more accommodating there, but personality-wise, I don't have a problem with saying, nope, that's dumb, or whatever, right? But yeah, it can be, especially when you're working with someone, like I looked up to Shamus and I admired him as a mentor, and both in writing and in programming and game design and all those things, as a friend and as a mentor. And so it's hard to confront someone like that unless they're really inviting it. And Shamus always seemed eager to put up fences against criticism, right? And he would have disclaimers at the beginning of his articles and things saying yeah, I know that this isn't perfect, but please don't jump all over me about this. And so it never really felt welcome, and so it was hard to push back.
Yeah.
Completely understandable.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, when you work in games, you kind of get used to. That's kind of strange actually, because now that I think about it, Shamus did work with the escapist forums, which are a notorious hub of peacefulness and welcomeness.
That's right.
I believe, yeah.
Charm and goodwill.
Wait.
Yeah.
It's like Christmas all year.
Yeah. I think Obi-Wan would describe it with the same words as he described Mos Eisley.
Yeah.
A hive of villainy.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it is surprising because, for example, when I was a student game developer and I was making just small games and releasing them, I got pretty numb to criticism pretty quickly because, for my first few games, criticism started as this person should not be allowed near 50 meters of a computer ever, and this looks like a crappy Flash game.
Right.
And I would look at that and I would be like, wow, that's the kindest thing anyone has ever said to me. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess, yeah, it is how different personalities react to different things. But I mean, all in all, I think that's just a minor. I think it's pretty telling that that's the biggest thing we can focus on because.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was too nice. Wow. What a villain.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. Yeah.
In this
Yeah.
day and age, no less.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't really follow much of the stuff he did on other sites. Was he involved in the forums at The Escapist, or did he just read the comments occasionally?
No, I'm not sure if he read the comments to his articles, because I don't remember seeing him post on Escapist forums all that much, and I mean I wouldn't blame him, but yeah, like I don't think so. Yeah, I think it's just I mean
Okay.
that's just the nature, because this was I mean the Escapist forums I remember were like of a time, pre-Reddit, pre-Twitter, where forums really were the places where people would interact, and forums have a different vibe compared to social media, because when you go and you are a new sign up person on a forum, like there is this sense of like walking into a bar and everyone looks at you and everyone else knows each other, right?
Yeah.
Because you have like people saying, oh yeah, X, like triple X sniper dude 69, like he's always like this, and you would be like, who is this guy? But forums already had like people who knew each other and who knew each other's behaviors, and that kind of led to a place where like often like mean behavior etc. was tolerated, because that's just how this person is. He's much nicer when you get to know him.
The power of post count.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
When you had because the forums back then, the young people who are listening now, back then in our day, forums would display how many posts you posted right under your name, and your social status was directly affected by how large that number was.
Yeah. Remember when people used to make like custom images based on their post counts and the stars etc. they had gotten?
Oh yeah.
Like
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I wasn't that far back.
Oh, you're a young one. Paul, you're a young one.
Because that was basically like when you would be in a forum, like you would see somebody's post and their signature was basically a list of like, I have spent 10 years in this forum, and God help you if you try to disagree with me. Like,
wow.
But it was an animated GIF, basically.
Nice.
So, no, but to bring that into contrast, I found Shamus's site and the comments on there to basically be the opposite of the wider internet. And the community was much more welcoming. Like, like you were expected to be nice, which is great. But also like, for example, often Shamus would love to answer questions. Like if you ask him something about that, like, hey, how do you do this? He would respond. So then it's cool, right? Because you were like, I'm directly at his site and I'm asking him questions and he's responding. So that's great.
Yeah. Also, but I do think like the way, at least the way I know Shamus by proxy, I would imagine that he would read the comments on The Escapist, because the way I perceive him is that he was very, very proud of his work. Even if he was critical of his own work, he was still proud of it. And he worked hard on it, and
he poured himself into it, and he wanted it to be good.
Yeah, he wanted it to be good, and he was very interested in what others had to say about it.
I think he also read the comments on YouTube, because he would put in his articles, on some of his later articles, about the comments he'd received on previous YouTube videos. So I think he did read them, even didn't respond.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way I would have imagined him to be.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the things that made 20-Sided Tale really special, is that he would always read every comment. Like it was part of his workflow that like every single comment was something that he would read, and it was that attention, that shared attention, right? Like everyone on the site was reading his work, and he was reading everyone's comments, and there was like that community. And I think that's probably what to a large part made it special, is that it wasn't just a one-way road, right? It wasn't just, we're all admiring his work. He was engaging with us, actively. And
yeah.
And
I mean, several community members, I remember they were also quite insightful. So their comments would often add to the discussion or the article that was written, and like it would be worth your time to read the comments.
Yes.
Like, I wish, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with you, but like from perspective, I was mostly lurking. Like I did never go to the 20-sided forums. when they were a thing. Like I wasn't aware of them, or only after they were closed. But
were you on the forums, Arvin?
No, I mean, I would comment on the articles sometimes, but I'm like 90% a lurker. Like I still visit 20-sided, like, I have the speed dial, and 20-sided is still like one of the sites on my regularly like visited ones, but I'm usually not a commenter. So
for me that's the same, and I also commented very rarely, but because unlike on other social media, like unlike on Reddit where I post much too much, on his site I was compelled to evaluate what I had to say, and it had happened several times that I wanted to post something or that I had written down what to post, and before committing to it, rereading it, and then deciding, oh no, that's inane drivel. That's not worth reading on this site. and just delete the whole thing.
Yeah, I did that too occasionally, where I was like, this point and that point, and I'm like, no, that doesn't hold together.
Yeah.
I wish more of the internet did that.
Yeah, and for me personally, 20-side is the only place I do that. And I still do. I still visit the site regularly. Like not every day, like I did when Shamus was posting a lot, and but I still, like, 2-3 times a week when I have like 10 minutes, I still stop by, see if something new's up, read a few comments that have been new. Still going there, still appreciating what the young family is doing with the site.
Yeah, definitely.
And I would wish they would put out more podcast content, because I can't read the site while I'm biking to work. I need something that stimulates my ears.
Yeah.
Hey, if you listen to this, please more. I do enjoy what you do.
Right. Got a couple comments here from people on watching the stream. Zedekai is also a regular, or was a regular on the site. Says art is never finished, only abandoned. And then David saying nitpicking the dead is a great idea. And then someone whose name looks like in Japanese says, I discovered Shamus Young early 2021. Oh, wow. I remember my thoughts, something like, wow, such a creative author. What can he possibly write in the future? Yeah, so that you only had about a year with him. Yeah, there's all the backlog. There's all the backlog. Yeah,
there's all the backlog. And like most of the articles are still great to read today, because this is one thing which we didn't touch on before, but a lot of his content is timeless. Like, I mean, a lot of the sort of even reviews and stuff like that on the internet feel more reactionary. Like they are like products of their time. But Shamus's website, for me, is actually timeless. Like a lot of the stuff that he wrote about, like just his projects, programming, like analyzing the plot of Mass Effect, etc. I could still go read that. Like I would love reading him like reading his nitpicks about Mass Effect for like rough 50 hours, like easily. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. It's also because he didn't go for breaking news. He was always the analyst. He was like it. You can feel that he put so much thought into every sentence he wrote.
Yeah. Well, and he also because of his no religion politics thing, he also stayed out of a lot of the hot button flame wars and things, and so that had the side effect of not coupling his work to the things that were in the popular consciousness for a brief amount of time, right? The flash in a pan kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's true. That's also something that I do admire about him, that he was so consequential in his no politics, no religion. I mean, sometimes I think I would have appreciated his insight, if he even had any. I don't know how much he thought about that stuff.
He did. I talked to him off air a bit, and he had political views. But he intentionally didn't make it a topic. So
And I think that was very wise of him, and I think that's also part why the community that kind of grew around him was so welcoming, and also so civilized in the tone of discussion, because not everybody was agreeing with everybody all the time, but people were still being respectful towards each other, and that's just a bit easier if you're not blinded by a label that you put on top of a person.
Right. Or when you feel like your entire society is on the line, right?
Yeah.
It'd be interesting, Arvind, did you have a feeling about the political thing? Because being from India, I don't know if the cultural aspects there played into that, or...
I mean, U.S. culture has a tendency to bleed over everywhere, and I kind of wish it didn't. But
sorry.
So I am familiar with the sort of the whole like culture war thing. But at the same time, when we were working on Good Robot, I was a person from India. There was Mick, who was Estonian. There was Ross, who was Canadian. Then Shamus was American. Ratskan was American. So we were, and Ian, who contributed a bit, was British. So politics wasn't really something that was like, that none of us had a common ground. Something might be happening in India, but none of the other people have have any inkling or like interest in it.
Sure.
So yeah. And most of the time, the distributed nature of like how we worked meant that our meetings were like short and to the point. Like we were mostly focused on what we were working on for Good Robot. So yeah, unfortunately, I wish I had insights, but I don't. Yeah.
Also, Paul, you don't have to disclose his opinions.
I don't plan to. If his family wants to go into that, they're more than welcome, and I'm sure they're more than capable.
I think so too.
Yeah. Let's see. We've talked a little bit about the things that brought us to Shamus's site, but what's like the favorite famous thing? Like the one thing that if you were gonna give somebody something that Shamus made and say like consume this media or whatever, like what would you give to somebody?
To me, it's either between the DM of the Rings or the analysis he did on the Mass Effect plot.
Yeah.
I think depending on depending on the person I'm recommending it to, I would basically link that thing to them, because usually there were a few of my friends who I linked stuff like Shamus's stuff too, and some of them, they were just like, okay, yeah, now I read the site too, because they were if Shamus's content is your thing, then there's not really much else on the internet like it. So yeah, there once you're in, you're hooked. Yeah.
That's true. Like I tend to recommend his blog to people who are like-minded, who are aligned with my interests. But funnily enough, the thing that I have recommended in real life the most is his book, The Witch Watch.
Oh, really?
Which I really liked. It kind of hit a sweet spot for me, and that's something that I actually have gifted to somebody once as well.
Excellent. The Witch Watch. Let me pull that up.
Yeah, I remember reading the book. Unfortunately, I don't remember anything about it off the top of my head, but I did buy the ebook and I did read it.
Yeah.
Even his the one inspired by System Shock, that was really good. Free Radical, I think it was called. Yeah.
Free Radical.
Yeah.
Free Radical was pretty cool. I've read through that a couple times, maybe 3 times. I think if I was gonna give somebody one thing, it might be his autobiography, How I Learned, just because it kind of like covers so many of his interests and kind of like sums up a lot of this stuff, like his insights about himself and where he's coming from. And then it's like if you feel like you like this person, then I'm sure that you'll be able to find other things about him, that, other things that he made.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm
I
trying
mean,
to find
all
his,
great choices. Yeah. There is so much, just like, there's so much content.
There is so much content, and also as you all said before, Arvind, like even his programming stuff. To me, who's I like. I haven't programmed since high school, and that was in the 90s. So even to me, those articles are interesting and well worth reading, and they give insight.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they have the same sort of vibe as craftsmen explaining their craft, which even if you are not really associated with it, like if a really like articulate and intelligent woodworker told me how they went about carving a statue, I would read it, because there is a way to make any process explanation very compelling, and like he was really good at that. So
Yeah. And his analysis of games wasn't just like, I liked this story or I felt cool when I did this one thing. It was often about what the game designers did well and what the game designers were trying to do and failed to do, and how they could have done it better and things like that. It was that same kind of craftsman approach that he brought to analyzing games.
Yeah.
That makes it kind of timeless, like you were saying.
Yeah. I mean,
sorry, Arvind.
No. I was saying, especially because there was a brief period at the, if you look at game reviews and how they were perceived by the public, in my opinion, there is a kind of trend where until roughly mid 2000s, like there was a trend of like people just looking at them as like advertising. So they were like, yeah, the reviews are all going to be nice, but then sort of like zero punctuation, angry video game nerd, etc. There was this wave of like really kind of like negative sort of just like, zero punctuation obviously is not really negative, but the general tone was more sort of like roasting and like, just like, oh yeah, this is trash, that's trash, this sucks. So
it's like taking the piss.
Yeah. So Shamus was actually more like sort of like a reasoned voice in all of this, especially like, the heyday of like all of this, like, the video content was just coming to the like general consciousness. Like now video reviews and Twitch streams have completely eclipsed written reviews.
Right.
But this was a time when, like you could see that sort of like that's where this is going. But Shamus was kind of like, still kind of like the old guard, and really like not many of his kind, where they would analyze the game and they would be like, this is what works, this is what doesn't, and like it's especially for a consumer sort of oriented post, like not something oriented towards developers. That was quite rare.
And even go so far as to say that he wasn't a reviewer. He was an essayist.
Yeah,
he was writing essays on the games he was interested in, and he might have been interested in games because he liked them, or he might have been interested in games because they failed in interesting ways.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. He was kind of
fun to read.
Kind of an academic in that sense.
Yeah.
Like he didn't have a degree, but he was trying to do research on games and like have a theory of what makes a game good and try to apply it and try to upgrade it, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And in a way, he was also I feel like he was trying to understand games, and understand games in how they combine their story and their mechanics, and how they synergize and how they diverge. And I won't say the word. I mean, I will mention ludonarrative dissonance.
Yay!
But yeah, he's one of the very few, or was one of the very few voices in the gaming industry that offered that kind of analysis and insight.
Yeah. I think some of my favorite or some of the favorite conversations that he had were him and Bob Case, I think.
Yeah.
Talking about game design and stuff, because like they both had that same kind of they connected on that level of caring about the game world as a coherent space as opposed to just a vessel for gameplay.
Yeah, exactly. Like I got the feeling from Bob Case's work as well. Like it was the world, the story, and the mechanics are regarded as of equal importance, and all in service to each other than just having the plot be an excuse for the gameplay to happen.
Right. I'm trying to find Bob Case's. I don't think he's active anymore, is he? Mr.
I haven't read from him. He hasn't published anything in a while, I think.
Looks like 4 years. 4 years ago. But the stuff he has put out is still pretty good. There goes the link to his channel. And he did a number of, at least one series on The Witcher, I think, on Shamus's blog, didn't he?
I think so.
I think he did.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of cool that Shamus managed to pull together other authors and kind of like Rutsgarn, as you were talking before, Arvin.
Yeah, and Camster. Yeah.
Yeah,
Camster is a really good one for insightful analysis of games. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, and Camster still does put things out occasionally, I think.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah. His Aaron Signal series is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, he put something out a couple months ago. Let's see.
Yeah. I mean, this is one thing I really liked about visiting Shamus's site, because you would see I saw like a lot of other authors each who were as insightful as Shamus, but they had different styles, different opinions, different ways of making their content. And it was great to see, because being able to have a community like that really kind of, it gives you like a place to be basically on the internet. You're like, yes, here's where I can nitpick for 5 hours about this one minor inconsistency in a video game plot.
Right.
And I also think, like, at least at first, the relation to his collaborators kind of grew naturally the way I got to know it. Like with his the old
that's because
and spoiler warning crew, like he got to at least get to know a few of them via Left 4 Dead, I think. And their conversation, their private conversations grew into published conversations.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
that's
you're not aware of the secret rituals performed, behind closed doors, but and the blood sacrifices.
Right.
But I mean, like you can feel that it's not people coming together just to publish about games. I mean, that's what they did, but it felt like and the site and the content on the site feels like it feels like conversational rather than journalistic.
Right.
If that's the proper term.
Yeah, it wasn't. Even though it was kind of work for Shamus, it wasn't like he was that he had a professional relationship. He had like a real personal relationship with the people that he worked with.
Exactly. Yeah. That's more eloquently put.
Well, Arvin, would you like to go into more about game engine programming and things, or?
I mean, sure. What do you want to know?
Well, it would be interesting to hear, since you were kind of neck deep in Shamus's code, what was his coding style like? How compared to the style that you developed, was it focused in any particular way? Did he use APIs a lot, or was he more like homebrewing everything? No,
I think Shamus's code was basically very sort of old school. I would say he was like definitely more of a C style programmer than like my style personally is more sort of C++. And yeah, like his code was basically kind of like, I imagine just because of the, like, I mean, he is what, like maybe 40 years older than me, like, or 35 and a half, something. So his style is a product of his time, just like my style is a product of the time that I grew up. So yeah, it was actually like, but always like, it was like you were able to understand what his code was doing. So it wasn't like a thing, but yeah, it was definitely very old school, and it was like kind of focused on efficiency. And yeah, I mean, like definitely not like probably in the like 10% top of the programmers that I worked with. So yeah, I mean, I have no complaints. It's just like the kind of a product of his time, but very well laid out code and easy to understand, in my opinion. So yeah, like yeah.
So he wasn't
A+.
he wasn't using a lot of containers or objects or things. He was mostly like inline and
Yeah.
function calls and things.
Yeah, I mean, he would tend to like really use, like, for example, just the, like, a lot of global variables, a lot of just like basically to keep things simple, I mean, like there are downsides to architecture, like almost any architecture choice.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, but yeah, definitely like you could tell that this was like a a graybeard basically when you look at his code.
Sure. Yeah. I never worked on any programming stuff with him, but it would have been fun. Another life.
Yeah.
Neat. All right. Well, I'd be happy to hear more stuff. If you guys have anything else to say, or we could go through, kind of browse through some of the archives and pull up some articles and kind of talk about what we thought about those. What do you guys want to do? It's a very informal conversation here.
I'm up for some archives because I think like I have said more or less what I wanted to say. So
excellent. Well, let's see. I'm just going to bring up ShamusYoung.com here on the screen.
Shamus, your site needs a random button. Does this site have a random button?
I don't think that it does. It should, though. He's got on his splash page, I think the order of these is randomized. Let's see if I refresh this. Yeah. So you could just click on the top article. So this is This Dumb Industry Telltale Autopsy. Telltale Games is out of business. This is September 25th, 2018. You guys remember Telltale Games? Did you guys play any of them? I never really got into Telltale.
Yeah. I mean, I played quite a few of those, yeah.
I did as well. But they're kind of like a magic trick. Very impressive the first time around. But once you get kind of a glimpse behind the curtain, they lose quite a lot of the appeal. And, they vary in writing quality quite a lot.
Yeah, I mean, especially as they sort of started to increase their output of games, the writing quality became more like I was actually kind of sad because the last Telltale game I played was Tales from the Borderlands, which was really good in my opinion, and I wasn't expecting it to be good, but like I loved the characters and the general plot was entertaining. But yeah, like nothing quite matches the impact of like the first Walking Dead, because that was like when they that was the game that kind of put them on the map and everyone was like, whoa.
Yeah.
But yeah, as soon as you kind of figure out that the story isn't going to branch really and it all kind of leads to the same thing, that I mean, as a sorry.
I interrupted you. I'm sorry, Arvind, but
no. I was going to say that like. Sorry, let me just because what I was going to say that like like as a game developer and as an RPG game developer, I very quickly learned that promising choices matter is a very like two like double-edged sword, because obviously every player wants to hear that your choices matter in a game, but you as any group of persons with a limited time and limited budget, there like every choice can expand fractally, and you could end up with a narrative that goes in wildly different places with like you required to create content that is physically impossible, because like players could think of anything. And so
right.
yeah, like
Unless you're
but because
unless you're doing like Dwarf Fortress or something where it's a whole simulated world that's being generated procedurally, then it's like, well, if it's authored content, you really have to have rails and guardrails somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah, and unfortunately for like that style of game, like even in, for example, Unrest and like the Will Fight for Food, the RPGs I made, they work like there had to be guardrails, and players never like being told that you cannot do something, or they're like, oh, why did this person not do this, and why can't I go here at this time? But with Telltale, I think that was basically it, because that was kind of their like the promise. They were like, oh, it's like you're playing your episode of a TV show. But most TV shows have a linear narrative, and you cannot pause the screen at that point, like at one point, and tell a character to go to one place instead of another. So
yeah. I mean, that's something that I learned in doing improv as well. Like, as soon as you put something on the stage, it implies the promise to the audience, and the audience is very easily miffed when this promise isn't held up. And like with Telltale games, I mean, they had the stroke of genius with the little text that said, character XY will remember this.
Yeah.
That was very genius. That made me overthink so many decisions in that game.
And sometimes it was true, right? Sometimes it had an effect. And I wonder if they actually tracked all those decisions and then just weren't able to implement reactions to all of them, or if they just said they were going to remember and then threw it away sometimes. I don't know.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that when you ended, like usually there were 5-episode games, so when you ended, they would give you statistics of like this many players chose to do this.
So
but
it was
I mean,
tracked.
the thing is, but for example, but what started happening was that when Telltale started, I'm guessing that they were a smaller studio, so like the episodes would come out for like with a length of time in between them, which allowed players to kind of like discuss amongst each other, anticipate what was going to happen. And then like when the final episode dropped, and most players were like, so everything ends up kind of the same anyway, right? That's when the magic starts to go away. Because, for example, like if it's just The Walking Dead and you're waiting for episode 4, and the first 3 episodes have kind of like, promised that, some people are like, but I disappointed Clementine, but now X really likes me, and Y hated me here, but then Y I saved Y there. But while it's not there, the possibility space is infinite, and you are able to imagine how everything will be like will come together. But production realities mean that that's not possible, and that's when disappointment happens. And then once the formula becomes clear after like a couple of games to players, then
I mean,
then
especially
it's pretty much
in Walking Dead, I remember. I don't know which episode it was exactly, or which episodes, but at the end of one episode, you had this crescendo moment where you had to decide the fate of 2 people. Like one person dies, one survives.
Right.
And I remember really, really mulling over this, because those were both characters were very flawed, but still likable. And you could see, okay, the group would benefit from that character or would benefit from the other. And then come the next episode, the surviving character is killed off in the following 10 minutes.
Oh no. Oh no.
So it immediately crushed any weight this decision had.
Oh, wow.
But
Yeah, that's hard.
I totally get why they had to do it, because like everything, I don't think they did motion capture, but everything had to have dialogue written,
Right.
dialogue recorded,
Right.
Yeah.
and
And that
it would be
immediately
just
doubles your workload for that, at least for that character, right? It's like, oh, well, let's do
Yeah.
twice the amount of work.
Yeah.
and it's growing exponentially. Like if
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you do that for each and every decision, and even if you only do it for 2 decisions per episode, you still have 2 times 4 times like hundreds
Yeah.
of different permutations in the last
Like
episode.
the first,
so-
every
Right.
decision after the first decision like exponentially increases the variation, which is like really impossible to manage after maybe like 3 or 4 decisions.
Although,
and
for that particular instance, it seems like I never played the game, so I don't know if this would have worked. But for that particular instance, it seems like you could have had like the surviving character meets a family member that he didn't know was alive and like goes off with them to do something, right? As opposed to killing them, you could have like given them a happy ending out, kind of, right? It still get them out of the storyline, but make your choice still seem significant, right?
I mean,
Yeah,
I
but
guess,
I-
but yeah.
it would still feel like they were written out.
Sure, I mean
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
what it would have
It
been.
didn't feel like,
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, they're not dead. They've just gone to a farm upstate. You know, it's like, yeah,
Okay, that's not a great excuse.
Yeah. yeah.
I surrender. I wanted to just
No.
read the highlights from Shamus's article here. He's got lessons to learn. Number 1, stability is more important than growth. I'm not going to read the whole thing, just the highlights here. Number 2, rapid growth harms the culture of creative endeavors. He mentions that in 2017 or in 2007 they raised $6 million of venture capital, and but they had to commit to certain levels of growth, and so it's like, well, they have to putting out more games, and so then they have to, have more people on board, and so then point number 3 is writers are not interchangeable, and he talks about this. This is another thing that Shamus kind of talked about a lot. I think is like writers matter, and the tone of a writer is extremely difficult to replicate, and you can't just swap somebody out, right? Like with
Yeah.
what was the with Handsome Jack, Borderlands 2.
Yeah, it's
Borderlands.
Where it was written by this other author who like really hit a particular style, but then he wasn't the writer for the next game, and I was like, well, it didn't really work, So anyway, point number 3, writers are not interchangeable. Point number 4, permacrunch is destructive. He also writes about this quite a bit. Point number 5, pay your people well, and point number 6, fancy offices are for rich companies, not startups pretending to be rich companies. So basically just saying, like, don't get caught in the money trap. If you're making something creative, you have to have the freedom to do the thing and let your creative people kind of drive the project as opposed to having the suits drive it, which is another thing that he seems to talk about a lot.
That's true. Like in that vein, he also he was, I think, the first guy that made me wary about the Acquisition Blizzard merger and how Activision's corporate culture would negatively impact Blizzard, which I thought at the time to be impossible because I was a huge Blizzard fanboy.
Yeah, I loved Blizzard too growing up. Although
that proved to be right. His very bleak outlook on that.
Yeah, I feel like, well, let's see if we can find an article about Activision Blizzard. Was that going when he was still around? I think it was.
Yeah. Like I don't know. I think it was mentioned in a podcast though. I don't think he has a written article on it, but But it was mentioned in I think it was mentioned in a podcast, the merger, and that he was kind of worried about it, that Bobby Kotick would rub off on Blizzard.
Yeah.
To call a name, which I hope is okay.
Blizzard. Here we go. Diecast episode 353. We got a mailbag question about what are your thoughts on the ongoing Blizzard fiasco. I guess this was before the merger, right? The Blizzard fiasco, they had some sort of HR thing, and like people were harassing female employees or something. anyway, he got a, he
Yeah, I
weighed
mean,
in on that
there was a whole like nest of problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they were going to get acquired, and it's like, well, is that going to make it go away, or is it going to make it get worse? Yeah, I really when I was growing up, Blizzard was kind of like the hero studio. I guess for Shamus, it was probably like id Games with Carmack. But for me and my friends growing up, it was Blizzard. It was like, they made these super polished games. They were fun. They were engaging. They had a kind of an open architecture, so you could do modding on them. One of my friends actually ran a site that hosted Warcraft 3 maps, that, custom maps that people would make. And so just like that whole culture was like, it's really cool that they're doing this. And then when World of Warcraft was going to come out, it's like, whoa, they're going to, our favorite company is going to make our favorite genre. It's going to be incredible. And it was incredible for a while. But I feel like World of Warcraft kind of consumed the culture at Blizzard and hollowed it out, right? And it seems like after that, it was just kind of a husk of its former self.
Yeah, but
I mean,
did,
yeah.
Post World of Warcraft, it did still publish a few very well received games.
Yeah, that's true.
Like StarCraft 2.
Mm-hmm.
What else was there?
Well, Overwatch.
Yeah.
Overwatch, yes.
I mean, it's hard to, because companies change all the time, and like when you talk about scales of like tens of years, then people come and go. So it's really hard to exactly pinpoint. For example, like, okay, this is the point where this company changed, and like they went from being good to being bad, because everything here is subjective, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But it's just like, it's kind of like how like The Simpsons, how like everyone has a different point of like that's after that I kind of lost interest. This kind of ends up happening to like everything, and it's just like like time like changes everything.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and without being there, it's very hard to say. Like like I mean, I have no idea of how Blizzard was working, and like what were the key people, and like when things started to take a wrong turn. So
I also only have the consumer's perspective on this. No insight whatsoever. But to me, it even if it might not have been the cause, which Shamus I think did think. I think so too. Just as a side, but it might not be true. But it coincides. Like the downfall of Blizzard, where they went from caring about publishing very, very neatly polished and carefully balanced games to something like Diablo Immortal. That's something that Diablo Immortal I dare say wouldn't have happened if Blizzard had stayed independent.
Yeah, it seems like anyway. But who knows?
But yeah, that's true. This is very hypothetical.
So there we go. That's Telltale Games. Here's another article. This is I'm just clicking on the top link on his ShamusYoung.com site. This is a review of Silent Hill Turbo HD 2, which appears to be. Here, let me put the link in the chat here. So
Silent Hill Turbo? I've never heard of this.
So that you can read it if you like. Well, the reason you haven't is because this is a parody review about a game from the future that he's a fighting game from the future that he's writing. And he's made a little piece of edited clip art here, and I don't know. This is very interesting. I think it's like a meta commentary on review scores and how review scores keep getting inflated, because he's saying Ultra 3 was completely abysmal with a 99.6% on Metacritic.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, this was the time when like, for example, we would hear about Zelda fans being angry that somebody gave their game a 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
This was that time. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that was also the time where publishers like Konami were, which also stood in high regard, were was it Konami? Not Konami, but like doing pachinko machines rather than video games.
Yeah.
I think it was also around that time. So it's a commentary on both the industry and the reviews.
Yeah.
But I also never came across.
Because I mean, for fans of Silent Hill, these characters are like part of a really well-crafted story, and every character represents certain feelings and certain fears. But to an executive, these are just like bits of IP that they can use to make money. So, like, if you don't have the same investment in a piece of work, then you're not going to look at it from the same point of view.
Right.
Yeah,
That's all.
That's true. That's true. From the publisher sees those characters as marketing investment already paid.
Yeah, and in fact, like if I was a publisher and I imagine a universe where Silent Hill 2 was like the breakout game of like everyone's talking about it, you would be like, why am I not making more of Silent Hill 2? Because I can keep this Silent Hill 2 juggernaut rolling, Then I can make a Hollywood tie-in, and then I can sell toys and all the various ways that you have to make money, right? So, like, the last thing you care about is like artistic integrity, because that's like a concept for losers, Yeah.
Sure. Well, it's for. It's not necessarily for losers, but it's for poor artists, right? And like, you don't want to be a poor artist.
People.
You want to be a successful businessman. So why would you do that?
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to say losers. I meant to say poor people. My mistake.
They're not the same thing.
Depending on your political beliefs, they might be the same thing. They might not be.
Oh no.
Just to be clear, I'm being sarcastic because I was an indie game developer for a decade. I'm the furthest thing away from a rich person. So.
Oh, I think I never even took a whiff of a rich person.
Oh, how about his Resident Evil 4 series? That was fun, right? I mean, I'm looking at it.
Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, well, I found this one, which is like in the form of a questionnaire, and it's quite hilarious.
Okay.
Yeah.
Resident Evil 4 was an odd game. If the other president was kidnapped and held prisoner somewhere in the European wilderness, what would be the best force to deploy in order to secure her safe return? A, the 82nd Airborne. B, a small squad of Navy SEALs. C, mechanized infantry with air support. D, I'll just go in by myself and wander around for a bit. How big can Europe be anyway? ?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Not that big, let me tell you. Not that big. Like it's all within walking distance.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you only need one guy with a questionable haircut, right? Yeah.
Oh, fun.
That's a good one. Like that really inspires me to when I have time to go through the backlog of his stuff before I even had discovered his site. There's gold in there.
Imagine the movie Aliens. His closing thing is, she was a stinging reminder in the world that it's the female teenage girl that gets captured all the time. It was a stinging reminder that the world you were in made absolutely no sense, and you're just playing one of the dumbest secret agents in history. Imagine the movie Aliens, and now replace character Corporal Hicks with Carrot Top. That's the sort of fear-nullifying goofiness that we're talking about here. Oh, man. He also wrote a This Dumb Industry article about Resident Evil 4, why I hated Resident Evil 4. So, point number 5, incoherent tone. Point number 4, quick time events. Point number 3, quick time events was also kind of a pet peeve of Shamus's. Like, this isn't gameplay. Yeah. This is just interrupting a cutscene.
Go ahead. I've never heard anybody say I like quick time events. Never,
yeah,
ever.
exactly.
Like,
that's true.
As a social worker working with youth, and having also played video games with youth, I never ever saw even a glimpse of enjoyment out of anybody encountering a quick time event, no matter the generation.
Yeah, and I think you kind of see that lesson, because now in modern games you see them less and less, and in fact often there are ones which are like either they're disguising loading screens or you cannot fail them.
Yeah.
Like, so, like I'm pretty sure even like in the Sony like Spider-Man, they literally have an options menu toggle of like always succeed in quick time events.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They let
like
you just yeah.
In all the recent Sony games, you can disable them. You can make them easier. So they're a bit hidden away in the accessibility options, which are also getting much better, by the way, nowadays. Especially for Sony games. But yeah, they're kind of an awkward thing from the past that we somehow still need to adhere to, but you can disable them nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't the God of War series all QuickTime events, or was there some running around in there?
Oh, there's lots of running around. Lots of running around. The
Okay.
new one also have lots of talking and running around, which I coincidentally quite like. It's a good one. Like if you get your hands on it, the reboot I can recommend if you want very story heavy games.
Point number
But
3 was
mouse with stuff.
mouse versus thumbstick. So this is interesting that did it use like I haven't read this article clearly, but did it use a thumbstick stand-in for the mouse where like you'd move the mouse around like a joystick? Or was it
No, it was because you couldn't. I think it was because you couldn't move and aim at the same time.
Oh, here we go. Couldn't move and shoot at the same time. Yeah. I see.
Oh yeah.
Ugh. Number 2, horrible horror. And number 1, too much hype. Too much marketing. There's such a thing. Yeah, that was something else that he kind of he talked about a bit. It was like marketing and pre-authored cutscenes for marketing and things like that. You know, gimmicky marketing.
Yeah. I mean, being from India, I have no experience with video game marketing. Like, we don't get video game ads in India.
Oh, really? That's
Not
interesting.
even like
Funnily enough, we in Western Europe, at least in Austria, we also don't get much video game marketing. Like, not in mainstream media. It's on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. On the internet, yes, but yeah.
But there's no like there's the occasional mural, which is quite interesting. Especially in Poland, there's the occasional mural for a video game on a building, which I find pretty neat and awesome. I would love to see that in my area as well.
So they don't have like billboards? Is it like actually painted on the side of a building?
At the whole building, like multi-story building.
Wow.
I maybe saw like a billboard of Grand Theft Auto 5, but like that's the level we are talking about here. Where like Grand Theft Auto 5, when it's coming out, literally every person on Earth knows that. So.
Right.
But then I also have to admit, like I don't nowadays. I don't really consume much mainstream or old school media like newspapers or conventional media. Yeah, like I don't watch TV or anything like that.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think most people don't actually like with all the streaming etc. Now it's all about like you finding your personalized like content, and like I mean I think the age of like the one TV channel that everyone watches is basically over. Like
that's to my kids, the having a TV program like where there's somebody else sets the time and the content, and it just broadcasts. It's alien to them. Like they used to when they want to see their kids show. They are used to being able to pick the time and the specific episode.
Right. Yeah, VODs. Man, I always thought that it was just crazy that you couldn't rewatch something whenever you wanted, right? It's like, you used to have to tape it. Like, you'd set up your recorder to tape it, and then you could watch it later. Like, no, we don't need to do this.
Oh yeah. I remember when back in my youth or in my childhood, you had to set the TV up on the proper channel and then program the VCR. And if somebody, between you setting it up and the broadcast, switched the channel and forgot to switch back.
Yes.
Oh, that was frustrating. That sometimes caused let's say a little it caused not the most positive feelings towards siblings from time to time.
Consternation.
Oh yeah, consternation, exactly.
So I posted a link. Here's one of the articles that popped up. Project Octant Part 1. So this is Shamus's, I believe it's a voxel game that he was working on. Using an octree. Yeah, it's an Octant voxel game. And like so many of his projects, never got finished. But he's got this lovely walkthrough, like Arvin was talking about earlier, of how he approached this problem, why the games that look the way they do, how you can optimize your rendering using octrees, and then actually making a thing actually work and like showing it off. I don't remember if he released the code for this or not. Do you remember, Arvin, if he Project Octant?
No, honestly, I don't remember whether he released the code for this. Because this was the time where, like, I think Project Octant, like, when I look at the articles, it was kind of a spin-off of Project Frontier. And then, okay, I see one article where he says the project is now available on Bitbucket. The only problem is Bitbucket Bitbucket stopped hosting, like, this kind of content. So,
oh no.
Yeah.
Maybe lost forever. Maybe archive.org has a version of it or something.
Yeah. Because I'm going to share the link of the 404 page. But this is because at one point Bitbucket was kind of like GitHub, but then they more or less like stopped. So.
But he's going into Perlin noise and bilinear smoothing. Tiling. Texture tiling. And this kind of ties in a little bit with his megatexture stuff. He did a whole article about what's cool about megatextures, why they work, why people do it that way. Interesting. Yeah, he's doing stuff for like seamless tiling on like sides of blocks and stuff. Oh, cool. Texturing slopes. Oh, there we go. So this is and I think what is this sloping created? There's a name for this. What is this? When you have a voxel, but then it's also connected to other voxels nearby with a weight map.
I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
He's probably going to mention it in here somewhere. And now it goes in a cube. Marching cubes. That's what it is.
Okay.
And I think marching cubes is how a lot of the modern deformable and editable terrain stuff works. Like for voxel visualization with variable weights, they'll do a marching cubes with variable wall position based on the voxel weight. So like Astroneer, I think, works like that, and I don't think Valheim's just got a height map, if I'm not mistaken. But I know Astroneer has like a voxel terrain thing, and I think it works with marching cubes. So this is a kind of an introductory idea. I'm sure other people have done it, but this is in his series. He wrote this whole thing from scratch. Then he talks about the shaders he uses.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna link one of the articles in this series from him.
Yeah,
and that's funny because I think that one line in here is really a product of its time. Someone reading the line today will look at that line very differently. It's kind of funny, but yeah.
Which line?
It's so like, you know, when you scroll down, there's a grid with numbers, and then there is this line called, but then some cheeky programmer looks at the data. So yeah, the line, that paragraph, that's very funny when you read it today. Because it references a person that, like, you know, yeah. Let's just say is viewed very differently from the heady days of 2012 when we were all much more innocent.
Yes. Oh, man. Oh, well. Yeah, the quadtree. Oh, man. Wow.
Yeah, but again, like, for example, this article that I linked here is a great example of how he explains a concept to people who are not that good at programming or familiar with the concept. So,
did you read these articles, Norbert?
Yes, I actually remember reading these articles. Like, especially his sketch of the marching octant in part 10 of the series is something that I immediately recognized. But since I'm not that technically inclined, I don't remember much about what was in them. But I still enjoyed reading them, and it was still interesting to read about how these concepts work, because this is also like he's talking about what he's doing, what he's programming, but on a very in a very very concept, in a way that is very very close to the concept and not of the lines of code. So you could follow what he does and what he thinks, even if you don't know exactly what he's doing.
Right. I think this is before Good Robot, right? See, 2012?
Yeah, I think, way before. This is like 2012. Yeah, Good Robot was like 2016, I think.
Is Good Robot that old? Oh, man.
Yeah. I mean, funnily enough, Good Robot was the last sort of independent game I made. After that, I went to work at Ubisoft. You might have heard of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like, I mean, in a way, Good Robot, like, even that surprises me sometimes, of like how long has it been since I was an independent game developer.
Wow.
I'm just like, if anybody doesn't have it, I just posted the Steam link to Good Robot.
There you go.
Chat on YouTube. Go buy it. It's pretty fun. It's actually one of those games. I mean, I haven't played Good Robot in a while, but I still really like procedurally generated roguelike shooters. So
yeah,
it's right up my alley.
My wife and I played it together. I would do, let's see, I think I was flying and she was doing the guns, because neither of us were good enough on our own to like make much progress. But playing it together like that, where one just focused on motion and the other just focused on shooting, we were able to make it all the way through the whole game, only dying, I think, maybe like once or twice, and then, you know, made it all the way through. So it was really fun to be able to play the game in an unconventional way and like see just how much processing you're doing, right? That you can't be looking at everything all at once. And so there's like a huge amount of skill that goes into playing a twin stick game like that. And but if you split it into two tasks, then it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, those games are much to process at the same time.
Let me see if I can find. He's got to have an article about Good Robot on Steam, right?
I think so.
Good Robot Dev Blog. Let's see. Where's the Steam post? Because it's still for sale, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
still for
I
sale.
think, yeah.
It's less than $10.
Yeah, I mean, and it frequently, like, whenever you have your summer sale, etc., it frequently goes on sale. So,
There we go. And are you still running that, Arvind?
yeah, I mean, although at this point, honestly, it's been like years since, like, Steam has sent me any check, because it's like, they only like send you
and-
money once you go above a certain threshold.
Right, in batches.
So yeah, it's been it batches and it's been a long time, I think like years since I have received anything from Steam.
Sure.
So,
Sure. But it's still there.
but I mean, if you want to play the game, it's still there. It's I mean, plus if you buy the game, you can then copy the assets to the source and you can compile it.
Right.
And then you can run the game. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can run the game by the itself too, but yeah. I mean, I always loved looking at the source code of games and like, seeing how much I can like gather from like, how they worked. Like, this was before games like, started like encrypting their stuff and like, not having things publicly accessible. But there was a time when like game engines were just like, okay, here's the data, go crazy. So,
right. Here we go. Oh, and this is when it was on Greenlight or whatever. Steam had like a whole system for getting your game on Steam.
I don't think Good Robot was ever on. Maybe Good Robot was on Greenlight. Maybe. Yeah. Yeah, I guess it was. Damn, that's like, yeah, it has been a long time.
Good Robot out now. Here we go. Got the link. Let me put that in the chat so people can find it. There we go. Good Robot. Yeah. Yeah, that was really fun to watch come together. And I think that was one of the last projects that, like, programming projects that he worked on too, wasn't it? Like, he didn't do much after Good Robot, I don't think. Programming wise.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. I mean, he might have done one or two things, I think, on Unity. I remember reading articles about it. He was trying to make a ship or something, spaceship, on Unity. So maybe, yeah, that was after, I think.
Yeah, that's true. Let's see. I'm just going to bring up his projects. See what the links are there. Oh, well, there's the Deus Ex thing. Now let's see, programming. Maybe programming would be better. These aren't alphabetical. It's a little bit annoying. Programming. There we go. Yeah, Project Bug Hunt was 2020.
He also did a Sudoku game that was pretty nifty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sudoku was 2017. So that was a little bit after Good Robot. It's Sudoku.
Yeah.
Man, I would have liked for him to release that at some point, because that was pretty cool. Although I think after he got into Unity, he felt like he needed to port the whole thing over into Unity, which would mean rewriting it all in C# instead of C++. And it just never happened. Sudoku. Yeah, Pixel City. Game programming vexations. Huh, interesting. Oh yeah, there's a whole article series about what was it? Jonathan Blow's Jai programming language. That wasn't really him programming, but like talking about programming. Did a whole article series about that.
Yeah, it's been a while since I heard about that. I wonder what's happening with that language here.
Yeah. Let's see. Jai programming language. Hey, there's a Reddit about it from 3 years ago. I think he's still working on it, but it hasn't been released. Looks like web scraping and then Project Bug Hunt. It's the last thing in programming. Oh yeah, he was doing like procedural interior, like sci-fi interior things.
Yeah, like a System Shock, like, or it's inspired visuals, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. And like so many things, he got to a point where it looked kind of neat and could go somewhere, and then it just kind of fell off, and nothing came of it. Ah, Shamus.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, like starting a project and releasing a project are like yeah, very different.
Right. They take many different skills.
I can imagine. I can imagine. I assume that starting a project has you have very quick progress in a very short time.
Yeah.
But finishing it is a lot of work and not much visible progress.
Yeah, and usually, like, when you start, like, I mean, in game or like in stuff like this, you start with cool ideas and you work on the cool stuff first. Then you gotta work on the non-cool stuff, and that's when like things start to get like feel like a grind. So
right, like a job.
Yeah.
I could imagine it's also looking for minute details instead of big pictures. Like you gotta find that one line of code that's giving you issues instead of thinking about how to conceptualize and how to put your idea into machine readable terms.
Yeah, exactly. So
Arvin, you're still working in game programming, right?
Yeah.
And are you still doing like user interface stuff, or what do you do?
No, I mean, I'm a gameplay programmer.
Oh, okay.
I mean, yeah. So, like, I mean, after Good Robot, I worked at Ubisoft. Now I'm working for a company called Wolson Studio, which is making an action RPG called Wolson. So.
Cool. Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like when I say that the thing about finishing projects, I'm speaking from experience because, like, I was an indie game developer for close to a decade, and like I made like 5 finished games. So, like, it's always the end of the project that's the real, like, grind, when like you're trying to find the bugs that have been annoying you for so long, and you are not sure where they are or how they got there,
Right.
So yeah, it's
5 games in 10 years. That sounds actually quite productive. Like that's 2 years per game, which I think isn't too bad.
Yeah, I mean, for a solo programmer, I think that's fairly decent. It's just that, like, I think like I kind of experienced more or less the same kind of like burnout / fatigue that like Telltale had, because what happened was, like, when, I mean, this is unrelated to Shamus, of course, but like when you have to release a game, and like as an indie developer, you kind of have to, because none of my games were super successful, and like, I didn't have like a boatload of cash to, like, support myself. So I had to release games fast enough. And as a result, there wasn't a lot of time to like focus on just the craft. It was more like, okay, let's quickly figure out an idea and figure out how to release it, and so on. So that ends up like building into like a frustration, because as a programmer, you kind of want to work on the cool stuff.
Yeah.
But and then but then like towards the end, especially like for Good Robot, etc., because Shamus was working on some of the more sort of like abstract things, and I was working on the programming, but then I also had to do all the promotional and the work, etc., for the game. So yeah, after that I was just like, oh, this is too much work. Yep.
Right.
Yep. For Shamus, it was a side project, while it's your bread and butter. It's your you live on that.
Yeah.
So you could say it's artisanal games, but not boutique games.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the difference between artisanal and boutique is, but I
Like
will.
one is it's well made and good enough to be sold, but more to support you. And boutique is more like you have the luxury to spend copious amounts of time to polish and put out the
Yeah.
perfect product.
Yeah, I guess when you say it like that, it makes more sense because it's and I mean, unfortunately, that's why indie game development is a very like industry with very high churn, because you see studios make like a great game, maybe two good games, but very few really make the third or the fourth. So because it's just like so challenging to keep the like lights running while.
Right.
Because once you are a studio, even if it's just in my case it was like 5 people or so, but yeah, then you suddenly have like a constant pressure of working like you gotta keep the paying the bills. People are like people who are working for you, they like you have to pay them, and it's just like it's
Yeah, I can totally feel that. I did a few years as a freelance journalist / PR guy years ago, decades ago, I can say now.
yeah.
And while it was a great time in some aspects, being freelancer sucked. So I feel you there.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of releasing games and a game that's neither artisanal nor boutique, I've just released my first game on Steam, Glyph Guesser. I'm not actually recommending anyone buy it because it's not actually fantastic. It's fun for about maybe 15 minutes, I think. But if you're interested, it's on Steam. I mostly just did it to like go through the process of actually making a game and finishing it and releasing it, because then you've done the process and it's less intimidating next time. And you also kind of feel out what the sticking points are, right? Like for me, it was like, oh, well, I didn't think about marketing this at all. Like, I don't know who my target audience is for this. And so like next time I'm going to have to figure that out beforehand. Right. And cross-platform compatibility. Like I didn't know what was involved. And so now I do, and things like that. So if anybody is interested in getting into game development, do something small. I mean, my suggestion is do something small, make it a tiny project, something that you can actually finish and release, and then you'll have something you've done and you'll know how to do it better next time.
Yep.
Also, Glyph Guesser, I just took a look. 86 minutes it had me entertained for 86 minutes.
Hey, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, I know, Arvin, you provided some feedback on it too, and thank you for that.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, it's a fun game. Yeah. Although, it's just like my jaded developer eyes. That like now when I play a game, I'm more looking at sort of like, okay, so this is how the systems work. And once I've kind of sussed that out, I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah, you know how the sausage is made behind the scenes, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So much of it's actually quite interesting that like a lot of like what makes the game good actually is like interface. Like so much of like, I mean, the mechanics and the systems are great, but like exposing them to the player properly is like such a big part of like what makes a game good or bad, like, talking at it from a player's perspective.
Right.
Because you can have games with really cool systems, intricate ones, but if they are very unclear or if they require a huge time investment, then like there is a limit on the success. I mean, obviously, like, there are games like RimWorld and Dwarf Fortress which kind of buck the trend, but even like they are fairly accessible in terms of the amount of systems they have.
Right. I was going to bring up Dwarf Fortress because it's an example of a game that was recently overhauled to have a better UI and quintupled or 10 times even the market there. So
yeah. Has Dwarf Fortress finally updated its UI? Oh my
They
god.
did, yeah.
They had a Steam release. I can recommend it. I can recommend it.
I've played quite a bit of it myself. It's it's a pretty cool game.
Rimworld.
Yeah, I mean, I actually met the developer of Dwarf Fortress at GDC, and he was a really like cool guy. Well, one of the developers.
Yeah, I didn't meet him, but I saw him at PAX 2014, I think. He did a panel. There we go. Dwarf Fortress on
yeah.
Steam.
So the actually like it's a graphical UI. Oh my god.
Yeah, they updated it, and it's a good time. I don't know. That was one of the things I was looking forward to with Shamus, is talking to him about Dwarf Fortress when it finally came out on Steam, because I know he had been interested in it but never played it, just because it was too janky, I guess. Like the ASCII graphics just wasn't.
And very obtuse in its controls. Like it's also one of those games I tried to get into for years. Every time I find a good Let's Play or a good like something like Boat Murdered, and I read that, and I wanted to play the game so bad, and I installed it and I played it, and I bounced off so hard. But now it's easier.
Yeah, as someone who played Dwarf Fortress back in the day several times, over the decades, the graphical UI, it's hard to overstate what a difference it makes, and that's one of the ways in which Cliff Guesser falls short, because it's completely text UI, right? And Arvin, that was something you said. It's like, it would be better if it had a nice UI. It's like, yeah, I agree. It's not great. It needs some help.
But I, for one, growing up with DOS games,
I
felt it quite charming.
Yeah, and Dwarf Fortress has some of that too, right? Where it's like,
Dwarf Fortress has some of that too, but the information that is conveyed is quite different with Dwarf Fortress and Cliff Guesser. Yeah, Dwarf Fortress, man, what a game! I feel like if we could have gotten Shamus to work with Tarn on making like a 3D procedural world for Dwarf Fortress, that would have just been chef kiss amazing. Oh yeah.
Oh well. Well, guys, we've been going for 2 hours. It's hard to believe, but I think we're going to draw this to a close. Any final words for this episode? We may do more in the future. We'll see what our schedules line up like. Norbert, any final words?
I hope not.
No! Your last words.
I prefer to be in a state of talking for the foreseeable future, at least.
Good.
Yeah, it was fun reminiscing. I felt really honored being invited to this.
Oh yeah, it is my pleasure.
Yeah, I'd be down again. Anytime.
Cool. Arvin, any final thoughts for this episode, commemorating Shamus and his legacy?
No, I mean, yeah. I mean, I felt that like my life was really enriched by like knowing about Shamus, reading all his works, like, and really, I mean, what better thing can you say about like someone in my opinion,
right? Because
I think he had a positive impact on all of us, and like that's really the like something we can aspire to. So, yeah.
That's right. Well, thanks guys for joining me. It's been really fun connecting with you guys again, and hopefully we'll do more episodes like this in the future. Maybe going over some of Shamus's other articles, maybe doing a deep dive on a particular topic, maybe bringing in some other people from the community. We'll see where it goes. But for now, thanks all for watching, and if you're interested in Shamus's work, don't forget to visit 20-Sided Tale, ShamusYoung.com/20-Sided Tale. And you can find a lot of his stuff there. His family's currently doing a remaster of DM of the Rings. So they're up-resing from the original screenshots, I think, and up-resing everything and bringing it back in high resolution. So if you want to follow that, it's ongoing. I think they're on episode 2 now, or article strip number 2. And that'll be a fun way to kind of get into the Shamus Young lore if you're interested. So thanks again, Arvin. Thanks again, Norbert. And so long, everybody.